In this video, I'm going to show you how to change the resolution of a categorical raster in R. It's a bit different than changing the resolution of a raster with continuous data. So we're going to regrid it or resample it. Essentially, we're just going to change the resolution. And the first thing we're going to do is, as usual, set the working directory. This just points my code to where all my data is saved. So my data is saved in a folder called sample data on my desktop. So that's what I'm pointing my code to. Let's run that. So the next thing we need to do is import the libraries that we need. We only need one library in this case, and that's the Terra library. If you've been using the raster library, I would recommend you switch over to Terra because it's a newer library, and I think the raster one is going to be outdated soon. Okay, so now let's import our categorical raster. My raster is a map of local climate zone, which is of course a categorical variable. So I'm going to use the rast function to import it, and what I need to do in the brackets is just list off the name of the file. Oops, V3, not V2. Okay, so let's take a look at that. And here it is. I'll plot it for you as well. Okay, so there's the plot. We have different climate zones across the planet. I'm also going to import a second raster for elevation. Again, both of these files are saved in sample data, which is why I'm able to just type the file name. If I didn't set my working directory, I would have to list off the entire file path like this, like that, but I don't need to because I've set it up already. And here's my elevation raster. So the first method I'm going to show you is how to make the resolution of my local climate zone match the elevation. So I want to regrid this file here so that it matches this one here. Let's take a look at elevation. You can see here that the resolution here and the resolution here do not match. And the function is quite simple. It's just the resample function from the Terra library. Before I do that, let's crop the data. So lcz.cropped, because you can see that our plot is for the whole planet and the elevation data is for a city in Canada, and I don't need the whole planet's worth of raster. So let's crop it first. We're going to crop the LCZ local climate zone to elevation. Let's take a look. Okay, so we were able to crop it successfully, and you'll notice that if we compare the LCZ cropped to elevation, it has the exact same coordinate reference system, and that's why we're able to crop it, but the resolution is still different, and I want the resolution to match. So let's resample it now. And the first method I'm going to show you is the typical method that people use, and it's the wrong method for categorical data, and I'm going to call it r.wrong because I know it's wrong. So we're going to resample the local climate zone raster, the cropped version, and we're going to resample it to match my elevation raster. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so let me also zoom in a little bit. Zoom in. Okay, so here's our wrong raster. And the reason it's wrong is because my categorical raster are not integers, they're different land use classes. It's not a continuous variable. So I don't want to be seeing floating point numbers in my min and max value. And this is just the wrong way to resample a categorical raster. It's essentially interpolating between values to get these floating point values. And it just doesn't make any sense because you can have distinct land use classes. You can't interpolate between land use classes. So, or climate zones in this case. So the right way to go about doing this is by essentially resampling it, but adding an additional argument. lcz dot cropped elevation, and then what we're going to do is include a method argument, and we're going to set it to near. So this means that it's just going to it's going to regrid it, and it's going to grab the nearest climate zone value and set that value to the grid cell. So let's run that and take a look. And there you go. Now we have distinct land use classes, but the resolution matches the elevation one. And I'll prove it to you by showing the elevation variable. So here's the resolution here, here's the resolution here, and as you can see, they match. And here are our min and max values for the climate zone data resampled. Okay. So I very conveniently had a second raster that I could resample to. If you don't have one, that's okay. You can still resample it. What we're going to do is just, we're going to use a function called disaggregate, and that will allow us to resample the climate zone data without using a second raster. So let's do that. We're going to type out the function, which is disaggregate right there. And then we're going to import the cropped climate zone data. And what you need to do is essentially just specify the resolution that you want. I'm just going to pick 3 as an arbitrary number. And I'm going to specify my method. Let's take a look. And there we go. A regridded or resampled raster for categorical data. We can take a look at both of these rasters. I'm gonna export the wrong raster and then the resampled raster, and we can take a look at what they look like. So we're gonna use the right raster function. I'm gonna export the resampled one first, the correct one first. So lcz._correct.tiff. So we exported that, and then we're going to copy this, and we're going to do r.wrong. So we've exported both, and again, because I've set the working directory, both of these tips are just going to save in this folder. So I'm going to pull open QGIS, and then we can take a look at both rasters. Okay, so here's my QGIS. I'm going to add a layer so that we have some context, and then I'm going to grab both rasters and import them into my layers tab here. Okay, here we go. Let's zoom in. So here's my land use raster resampled correctly, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like with the wrong one. So here's the correct one. Let me zoom in a little bit more. Here is the wrong one. So you can see the interpolation. I believe it's bilinear interpolation as a default, but I might be wrong. Check the documentation for the resample function, but you can see the difference. It's very clear. So yeah, just make sure that when you're resampling that you specify a method. For categorical, near is probably the best one, and it's pretty straightforward after that. Good luck.